Hi, I'm Vanessa De Souza, co-founder and marketing director of Rentals United. We're a channel manager, and I'm going to talk to you today about the next business model. Very disruptive idea around the lodging industry as a whole. And I'm sorry I'm not doing this in Spanish, pero hablo español como una patata, entonces lo siento. And I also wanted to say quickly that I'm very sorry we're not meeting in person this year, and I do hope we will meet in person next year. And as a side note, I was wondering how we're going to greet each other when we actually meet in business meetings and conferences. And I saw some ideas going around the internet that we should be meeting like in Star Trek, like I'll salute you like this, or the Wakanda salute, or the jazz hands salute, which I'm never going to do for you. No worries. Anyway, that was just that. And now let's talk about serious stuff. Let me take you to my office and let's discuss the next business model. Let's go. So let's talk about the next business model. I think you will agree with me that the world has completely been turned upside down since the pandemic. And this is true for many aspects of life, including saluting each other, but it's also very, very true in our industry and lodging industry as a whole. But new trends are emerging from this pandemic, or have been accelerated because of the pandemic. And this is not just me making it up. I've spoken to very many people in the industry about what's going on and what's the future of lodging. And one person who I respect very much, who is Mitch Presnick, who said that conversions is the most dynamic, impactful and interesting idea in the accommodation space. And I would like to explain that in detail in this presentation, because it's basically the idea of flexibility when it comes to furnished rentals, flexibility between short, mid and long term, because given that we have furnished rentals or represent furnished rentals, we can have this flexibility. So we're going to have a look together at the conversion in terms of inventory, of channels and of technology. And then I'm going to give you some tips on how I think you can get ready, because even though this trend is fairly new, there are some people who are working at helping property managers get ready to be flexible. So let's start with the conversions in terms of inventory. Now, I took some clippings from recent news articles that you may or may not be aware of. This one is in the UK, and it's basically student housing. An operator of student housing called Collegiate was struggling to fill the rooms with students because of the pandemic. And so they decided to turn the student housing into serviced apartments. And this is great because you have a 24-hour concierge, you have a gym, you have a laundry room, cycle storage, dining rooms, and so they shifted from being a student housing to becoming a serviced apartment. So here's another example. This is an apart hotel company or serviced apartment company that became recently a residential letting, so long-term lettings. So, and they even got a loan for that, or an investment in order to turn these apartments from short to long. And if we look into the hotel inventory or the hotel product, what's happening there? We see there's a trend in people renting hotel rooms by the hour because they want to get away from their family, with everybody working from home at the moment, have a quiet time for a meeting, or have good internet connection, and so renting by the hour in hotels is on the way up, and Accor is actually launched a whole campaign around that. So that's one thing that's happening in the hotel industry. And then another example of how lodging is shifting, and this is directly in our world, in the vacation rental world. In Barcelona, for example, we lost 62% of our short-term rentals. They went long-term or extended midterms. And so suddenly, I mean, for those guys, for those property managers that will be able to ride out the crisis, this is really good news come next year, because all of these apartments that are now gone, in Spain we have a law, you have to rent for a minimum of 5 years when you rent long term, so they're gone for 5 years. And so the rest of the property managers will be doing, I think, really, really well come next year. Hopefully next year we'll pick up again in urban areas. So this is this idea of being able to do conversions in terms of to be flexible, let's say, in terms of your length of stay, and this flexibility might sound quite new to most of you, but with many property managers around the world, and in cities where we have the 90-day rule, they've already been working like that. So they can only rent short term for 90 days. With the rest of the year, they have to be flexible and do midterm stays, right? So many of them have already been working like this, and some have mixed all three, short, mid, and long already. And these are the people that we need to learn from, because they really they really know how to shift the risk, basically, in terms of prices and in terms of low season and in terms of when there's a law change, etc. So these are the guys, in London, Berlin, Los Angeles, wherever they have the 90-day rule. So I spoke already about short-term, mid-term, and long-term. We need to define, right? Because we all have kind of different ideas of what that is. So it's 1 to 29 nights, so under a month is short. 1 month to 6 months is mid, and over 6 months, for the purpose of this presentation, is long term. And that's how we categorize it. Other people categorize it differently, but in any case, these are our categorization. And so we talked about, that inventory is shifting, and being very flexible and moving business models completely in order to respond to current market trends. And we see that is also true for OTAs. So here I'm just listing the short-term rentals the short-term rental channels that we work with, but obviously there are hundreds more. You'll see probably recognize the bottom line more than the top line, and there's about 20 missing that we're adding this fall. So tons of short-term rental channels to work with, and these are the ones that you would know, basically. And then you have your mid-term rental channels that are maybe not so known to you, and these are some of there's some very, very startup-y ones, and there's some way more established that had millions and millions of investment, and they focus on midterm rentals. And then you have, obviously, and in terms of midterm rentals, I just want to bring up a stat that Transparent, a data company, kindly gave me, and it only goes till May, as you'll see here, but it really shows the trend that midterm has been doing much, much better than short-term, clearly. And even though this stops at May, this trend continues, right? Most urban property managers are receiving, if they have a midterm approach, are receiving midterm bookings. And then we have, obviously, long-term rental channels, right? If we look at OTAs, these are some of the biggest ones in these countries. I'm sorry if I'm not covering your country, but so in these long-term rental channels, I'm sure you have seen availability for short term, for mid-term, and they're kind of mixing. They have all sorts of product, right? But what they don't have is a real strategy behind it. None of them connect to short-term rental channel managers, at least up until now, because we have some of these in the pipeline, and I don't think they really understand our product and how that works. But the short-term rental OTAs, they clogging on to this much faster, as far as I'm concerned. They are looking at increasing the number of nights everywhere. Booking.com did this just now in August. They were only up until 28 nights, and they obviously realized the trend that everybody's booking midterm, so now they're allowing for several months bookings. And this is true for the first 3 in this list, and Agoda also reported to me that they're working on allowing 180 days. So here we see the conversion in terms of flexibility. The OTAs also want to get a share of the midterm and long-term market. So it bears the question, right? In the future, when you're going to look for a furnished apartment, will you go onto one site that will have short, mid, and long? So to me, this is what's going to happen. This is like where the competition is on now. I think all of these OTAs are going to want to get the biggest share of this entire furnished rental market. And then we have the niche OTAs. These are some of the niche OTAs we work with. The first 2 are meta searches, and they're much younger websites, so they've clogged onto this much earlier on in their development phase, because they most of them already accept midterm and long term. Some here are specialized, like Homelike, specialize in midterm, so a lot's happening here as well in terms of flexibility, and we can't ignore it. It's moving, so that means that we need to get ready as property managers and how to be able to mix our lengths of stay in a automated manner, right? Which brings us to the technology side of things. And the technology side of things is, in my opinion, not ready at all. As far as I'm concerned, we haven't really started. We've just started maybe that conversation, and some property management systems are getting ready, but it is very early days, and these are the ones that I asked. Do you allow for e-contracts, which is one of the bottlenecks, right? Because the laws around contracts for long term is not, and also in certain areas midterm are completely different than short term. But this is one aspect. There's tons of things that you need to contemplate as you create your business model for long term. But these PMSs that I asked said yes, they do allow for e-contracts. And in terms of channel management, which is where I come in, we are now looking at long-term channels, and these are you see it right at the bottom here: Zillow, Zoopla, and Rightmove. And we're doing that because some of our customers said they absolutely want to be on long-term channels, and it would make their life so much easier if it was connected to their main channel manager. So what you see on this slide is the midterm channels that we represent, the meta searches, the B2B marketplaces that connect to travel agents, the short-term rental sites, and now we're also adding long-term platforms. So here we really see how even in terms of technology, we're now looking at all sorts of facets of the flexibility of short, mid, and long. But I don't want to advocate that this is for everyone. For sure, there are things that you need to consider very, very carefully as you get into the next business model. And these considerations, I put some here on the slide. We really need a strategy in place. One is that, and the first question is like, when are you going to shift? When is a property, unless you have the 90-day rules, but when is a property ready to be put onto a long-term market? When do you realize that, okay, I have to shift to long-term in this scenario? And what about my local regulations and licenses? These really widely differ from one place to another, from one city to another. So very important to first find out what are the license laws looking like. And do you need a license, for example, to rent long-term? How does that work? And then marketing technology, clearly. And that's what we kind of looked at just now. Which PMS can really help you do this? Which channel manager can help, etc. And then we cannot forget that there are really a lot of differences in terms of the margins that you're going to make if you're going mid and long. The operations cost that goes down as you go longer term. Obviously tax, you got to think of marketing cost. It's a proper business plan that needs to be put together in order to do this properly. But those that have are now seeing all the benefits from it. Now, I can't advocate going mid-term, long-term for every single region in the world. Clearly, there are some leisure areas that cannot take advantage of this. Even though I'm kind of think that with midterm and the digital nomad, I'll come to this in a minute, there are also areas that leisure can look at. But let's face it, I speak to many property managers around the world, and some of them have reported having the best summer ever. And they were in leisure areas as people are traveling away from the city. They can't go traveling abroad. There's lots of domestic tourism. They want to escape the apartment and stay in a villa, etc. So some leisure areas have done really, really well. If your leisure area has not done so well, here are some tips. But before, let us look at what's really happening also in the hotel world in terms of booking volumes. You see that indeed, the urban areas are very much affected. Here there's Australia in terms of booking numbers in the hotel industry. And you see that the coastal area much higher than Sydney and Melbourne. And the same for Spain. I'm in Barcelona. We really feel it. Property managers really feel it here. So Barcelona and Madrid not doing well at all compared to last year. And Malaga doing okay, and the same for maybe what's somewhat closer to home for many of you, for Mexico City and Playa del Carmen. So, just to restate, I understand there are very, very big differences between urban areas and leisure areas, and you shouldn't try and have one strategy for both. They're definitely different kettle of fish altogether. So in terms of tips, if your leisure area is not doing well, I really think, this is saying that, domestic tourism is just going to come. That's not a strategy. We need a strategy around domestic tourism. And there are certain things that you can do to improve on getting the domestic tourism to your leisure product, leisure rentals. And one of them clearly is pricing. Yes, even though coastal areas are doing better than urban areas, they're still not doing as well as last year in most regions. And so what you want to do is that there's a lot of product, a lot less demand, so you want to bring your pricing down. And you're pricing down or using promotion and being very much aware of what's going on with your market, and that is usually with a yield manager or a data company that can help and tell you, what is your competitor pricing at And I think that's key here. We have to look at our pricing. I'm a property owner myself, and my pricing for here for Barcelona and a coastal town called Sitges was very much geared towards the international traveller, the US traveller and the UK traveller, and I can't charge the same prices to Spanish travellers, clearly. So there's that, and then there's using promotions, last minute, etc. And then there's your channels, right? Which channels rank really high in your country? And that is for local tourism, that is for domestic tourism. And these may be channels that you're not really aware of. And so what we've done is that we created a collaborative Excel sheet of channels by country. And let's see if this opens, yeah. And a collaborative in the sense that I've asked everyone to contribute to it and look at their own country and tell us, in Australia, which are the sites that really work for you. And this is where we see that really works for you and that really works for you in terms of domestic tourism. So you now have a mix of a lot of sites. They're not always Rentals United, so this is not just advertising. There are many that are not, and you can scroll through and find what others have said really works for them in their country. And if we don't have your country listed here, please read this file and just add a tab and we'll help you do the research with pleasure. So I realize you can't access this unless I give you the link, so please email me Vanessa@Rentals United and I will send you the link. And I also put on the side here an advanced Airbnb optimization webinar that we did recently that I can also send you the link of, which is really interesting in terms of making promotions on Airbnb and all the tips and tricks there available to you that you may not be aware of and that could really increase in terms of booking number, really help in terms of booking number. And then we have niche channels, which you definitely need to be on niche channels. I showed you a few earlier. Some of them are, yes, you're not going to get maybe the bulk of your bookings, but at this stage, you need the eyeballs. And there are some wonderful, wonderful niche sites that attract local customers looking for, all sorts from sports tourism to, membership only, like only women, all sorts, staying longer term. There's tons and tons of them around. And I also have a PDF on that. So basically, if you want to get all of this from me, just email me, no strings attached, Vanessa@rentalsunited.com. I'm going to print that later also in the presentation. So, and I just wanted to finish on the digital nomad. The digital nomad, to me, is a trend that is here to stay, right? Because now we have businesses like my own. We are not going to ask for people to force them to be in the office. We want to be extremely flexible. And if somebody tomorrow said, I want to move to Bali, Vanessa, but I still want to work for Rentals United, I would not have a problem with that. And I think I'm not the only company in the world that has that approach since the crisis, because we basically found out that our businesses worked very well while being remote. So this is not something that we're going to force on people. And I think most companies would be like that. And as a result, you'll be able to work from anywhere in the world. And combine that with online education, which is also something we've experienced recently. If you have children, for them working from home or learning from home, this is definitely something that is also here to stay. I personally think, especially for the older kids. And so combine that and suddenly you have families who are very, very flexible, who can travel the world. And wouldn't that be wonderful? And so these guys, they are going to look for staying longer term, and why not in leisure areas too, right? Leisure and urban. So I would really watch out for that trend. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, and that means having being able to showcase your property as a home office, basically. Listing on the niche listing sites, targeting digital nomads, which will be mainly midterm channels, and having a pricing strategy for monthly. For monthly, and also an availability strategy, because it's not that easy to do monthly. But we are available for tips on all of this, and including this new guide that we put out, 40 pages. A lot of the things I talked about today, more in depth in terms of pricing, all sorts of things in there. I can also send you with great pleasure if you email me after this. And just as a last word, I wanted to say that, when it comes to OTA connections, be careful. This is not related to flexible rentals, but be careful, because there are connections and there are connections. So some software providers, will not give you everything available in the API, not all these promotions, not all the latest tools that you need in order to rank well on OTAs, right? And this is where Rentals United comes in. I think that's that's really where you'll see the great benefit, is that you don't get second chance at the moment to make a good impression on OTAs, right? So talk to us if you're looking to improve on your channel management capabilities. We're here, and most happy to hear from you. So thank you very much. Here's my email again, and I salute you. Cheers. See you next time. Bye bye.